Jack and the Beanstalk, press the space bar. Once upon a time, there was a poor widow who lived with her son Jack. They lived in a small country village. The poor widow worked hard to support Jack and herself. Jack was a kind-hearted and trusting boy. He was also a daydreamer. He often imagined that he was a brave knight protecting the king's castle. Jack liked to make believe the woods near his home was an enchanted forest. Jack's real life was pretty dull, living in the country village. One summer, the land suffered a terrible drought. It did not rain one drop. The farmers' crops withered and turned to dust. Without any crops to eat, the villagers would starve. Jack and his mother made their living selling fruit and vegetables at the farmers' market. Their money jar had been full. Now they didn't have anything to sell. Their money jar was empty. There wasn't a scrap of food left in the cupboard. The only thing of value they had left was their cow. But even the cow had stopped giving milk because there wasn't enough grass for it to eat. The poor widow told Jack, "We don't have any money to buy grain to make our bread. Take the cow to town and sell her to the highest bidder." Jack was sad to sell his cow. He had raised it since it was a calf, but he did what his mother asked. On his way to town, a stranger came up to Jack. "That's a fine-looking cow," said the stranger. "Yes, sir, she's the best cow I've ever had," said Jack. "Would you like to buy her?" "Well, let me see what I have to give you," said the stranger. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of beans. "I have something better than money. I'll trade you these magic beans for your cow." Dazzled by the idea of having something magical, he foolishly agreed to trade the cow. When Jack came home, his mother asked if he sold the cow. "Yes, ma'am, for a handful of magic beans," said Jack. "Beans!" yelled his mother. "We are starving and penniless, and you gave our cow away for some worthless beans?" The poor widow was so angry she threw the beans out the window. Jack felt sad that he disappointed his mother. He thought trading the cow for the magic beans was a good idea. Without any food in the house, Jack went to bed hungry. He could barely sleep that night. While Jack was sleeping, something wonderful was happening outside. The beans thrown out the window had sprouted and begun to grow in the moonlight. When Jack woke up the next morning, there was an enormous beanstalk outside his bedroom window. Jack was so excited he could barely believe his eyes. The beanstalk was taller than any tree he had ever seen. The stalks twisted themselves to form a ladder and pushed through the clouds. Jack ran into the kitchen to tell his mother the amazing news. They hurried outside to look at the awesome sight. "I wonder where it ends?" asked the poor widow. "Please let me climb the beanstalk to find out," begged Jack. The poor widow worried about Jack's safety, but allowed him to go after he promised to be careful. Jack started to climb up the beanstalk. He held on to the sturdy vines and stepped up on its large leaves. As he climbed up, everything down below got smaller. Even the tall steeple on the church seemed tiny. Jack grew tired, but he kept climbing. Finally, Jack reached the top of the beanstalk. There he found himself in the midst of an enchanted forest surrounded by fairies and magical creatures. The trees seemed to be alive as they watched Jack explore their woodland home. A short distance from the enchanted forest stood a magnificent castle. As Jack walked towards the castle, a strange woman came out of the woods. She was dressed in black and wore a pointed hat. "Beware of that castle. A horrible giant lives there," warned the woman. Jack had often daydreamed of magical kingdoms and faraway lands. The woman's warning did not make him turn back. "I see you are determined to seek the castle. Let me first tell you a story before you go. When you were a baby, the giant raided your father's land. He took everything your family owned. He stole your father's goose that lays the golden eggs. When your father climbed up the beanstalk to try to get his goose back, the giant killed him. It is your duty to take the goose back home where it belongs." With a poof, the woman in black disappeared. She, of course, was a good fairy. When Jack reached the castle, he blew a horn that laid at the entrance. The drawbridge was lowered and Jack walked across. He knocked on the front door. To his surprise, a giantess opened the door. Jack tried to run away from her, but she caught him. The giantess laughed as she carried Jack into the castle. "I need a boy to help me clean the castle while my husband is away. When he comes back, I must hide you. He has eaten all the other boys who were going to be my helpers," said the giantess. Jack was so frightened that he agreed to help the giantess clean the castle. "Please, madam, I am very hungry. Can you give me something to eat?" asked Jack. "Of course," said the giantess. She gave him a huge piece of bread. The giantess then put Jack in a dresser drawer to hide him from the giant. The drawer had a large keyhole as large as a window. Jack was able to look out to see what was happening. Suddenly, he heard a loud booming voice coming up the stairs. Then it cried out, "Fe-Fi-Fo-Fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." "Nonsense," said the giantess. "You smell bacon and eggs that I am cooking for your breakfast." She put the giant's breakfast plate on the table. "Come and eat," said the giantess. The giant sat down and ate his breakfast. Forgetting he had smelled the boy in the castle, the giant went for a walk. The giantess took Jack out of the dresser drawer. Time to clean the castle, she told Jack. He cleaned out the fireplace. He washed the giant's clothes. He mopped the castle floors. He scrubbed the giant's boots. He made the coffee. He made the tea. He prepared the salad. He cooked the soup. He baked the chickens. He washed the dishes. That evening the giant returned to the castle. Quickly the giantess hid Jack in the dresser drawer so he would not be eaten. Jack watched the giant as he ate his dinner. The giant had an enormous appetite. "Wife," yelled the giant, "get me my goose that lays golden eggs." The giantess placed the goose on the dinner table. "Lay," demanded the giant. The goose obeyed the giant and laid a golden egg. "Wife, bring me my harp," demanded the giant. The giantess put the enchanted harp on the dinner table. "Play," ordered the giant. The harp played such sweet and soothing music it put the giant to sleep. As the giant slept, he snored so loud it sounded like thunder. When Jack was sure the giant was asleep, he climbed out of the dresser drawer. Jack crept up to the sleeping giant. He quickly spotted the goose and magic harp sitting next to the giant. Jack grabbed the goose. It honked and flapped its wings with fright. The noise woke up the magic harp. "Save me from the giant," cried the harp. Jack grabbed the goose and harp and made his escape. He remembered the kitchen door was left ajar, so he ran for the open door. Once outside the castle, he ran as fast as his legs would carry him. Jack knew once the giant realized the goose and harp were missing, he would be angry. The giant would go looking for them. When Jack ran into the enchanted forest, the harp magically turned into a fairy. "Thank you for saving me from the giant. He kidnapped me and made me play for him." "Now we are both free to go home," said the fairy. With a poof, she disappeared. When Jack reached the beanstalk, he grabbed a sturdy vine and began to quickly climb down the beanstalk. When Jack was halfway down, he saw his mother waiting for him. The poor widow's arms reached up for Jack as he climbed down. "Jack," she wept, "you were gone so long. I was worried something terrible had happened to you." When Jack reached the bottom of the beanstalk, he jumped off. "Mother, I have so much to tell you," said Jack. "The beanstalk goes up to an enchanted forest filled with fairies. There's a giant who lives in a castle with his wife, the giantess. The giant wanted to eat me, but the giantess hid me from him. She made me work for her. I had to cook and clean all day. I took the goose the giant stole from Father. A good fairy told me what happened to him. She told me to take the goose back home. I also took the harp because it asked for my help. But when I reached the enchanted forest, the harp turned into a fairy and disappeared. Mother, why didn't you tell me about Father, the giant, and the goose? I was afraid you would try to take the goose from the giant. I thought the giant would kill you just like he killed your father. I didn't want to lose you too. Jack and his mother gazed at the goose. It's been such a long time since I've seen the goose. I thought I would never see her again. Just then the beanstalk started shaking. It felt like a terrible earthquake. Jack looked up and saw the angry giant coming down after him. "Mother, mother!" cried Jack, "get the axe!" His mother fetched the axe and placed it in his hands. Jack began to chop the beanstalk. "Mother, stand back! The beanstalk is going to fall!" Just as she stepped back, the giant and beanstalk crashed to the ground. The giant was dead. "Jack, you have saved us and our home." "We'll celebrate by sharing our wealth with the entire village." "No one will ever go hungry again," said Jack's mother. Jack agreed, and everyone lived happily ever after. The end.